The fallout continues following President Trump's controversial comments about the violence in Charlottesville this weekend. We'll speak with a Republican congressman who's critical of his president, but not that critical. Then did President Trump go rogue when he made those comments yesterday? We've got the inside story of how that crazy news conference came together and how his top aides feel about the whole thing today. Also, the surge in nationalism and white nationalism, and whether we've ever seen anything like this in our past. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in again tonight for Richard French. The fallout continues from the violence in Charlottesville and President Trump's bizarre and controversial responses to it. Every time he speaks, it seems, the situation flares up again. That's why tonight we want to hear from you and get your opinion of what's going on. You see our phone number at the bottom of your screen. It's 888-766-2428. Give us a buzz, and in just a few minutes, we're going to start taking your phone calls. Speaking of buzz, people still buzzing about what the president did say, and all the controversy has caused two of the White House's business councils to disband. Here's the statement from the dozen top CEOs in the president's Strategic and Policy Forum, which includes the heads of IBM, Boston Consulting Group, and Blackstone. Quote, "Intolerance, racism, and violence have absolutely no place in this country and are an affront to core American values. We believe the debate over forum participation has become a distraction from our well-intentioned and sincere desire to aid vital policy discussions on how to improve the lives of everyday Americans. As such, the president and we are disbanding the forum." Here's the president's quote. It was a tweet. Quote, "Rather than putting pressure on the business people of the Manufacturing Council and Strategy and Policy Forum, I am ending both. Thank you all." Meanwhile, back in Charlottesville, more than 1,000 mourners gathered today to remember Heather Heyer, the woman killed when she was run down by a car that barreled through the crowd in Charlottesville with an alleged white supremacist behind the wheel. Here's her father, Mark.
She loved people. She wanted equality. And in this issue of the day of her passing, she wanted to put down hate.
And while people are still trying to come to grips with what happened on Saturday, the ripple effect now being felt across the nation.
In Baltimore, Brooklyn, and Alabama, more monuments and statues honoring the Confederacy are coming down, and the outrage still pouring in over President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville, sparked by white nationalists protesting the removal of a Robert E. Lee statue.
I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups. But not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. You had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
In one of the most contentious news conferences, the president angry and not backing down from his initial response that both sides were responsible for the deadly violence.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt? What about the fact they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent.
While the backlash to Trump's remarks was swift and widespread, one group was loving his response, the so-called alt-right, with former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke thanking the president for his honesty and courage. But even Republicans quickly distancing themselves from the president's remarks and the hateful groups he's credited with emboldening.
There's no good KKK member. There's no nice neo-Nazi. Racism, bigotry, it has no place in the Republican Party. There is no home here. We don't want your vote. We don't support you.
We're also learning more about what was happening behind the scenes as President Trump was sparring with reporters. The New York Times reporting, quote, "Members of the president's staff, stunned and disheartened, said they never expected to hear such a voluble articulation of opinions that the president had long expressed in private." The National Economic Council chairman, Gary D. Cohn, and the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, who are Jewish, stood by uncomfortably as the president exacerbated a controversy that has once again engulfed a White House in disarray. A short time ago, I spoke with New Jersey Republican Congressman Leonard Lance, a Republican elected in a district that Hillary Clinton won last November, for his take about this whole thing. Congressman Lance, what was your reaction when you heard President Trump's somewhat rambling press conference yesterday at Trump Tower?
I liked the president's remarks on Monday. but I thought his remarks yesterday should have been more similar to his remarks on Monday. And I don't think there is any place in America for anti-Semitism or for neo-Nazism or for white supremacy or for the KKK, and I condemn those groups.
Do you think the president has done enough to condemn those groups as well?
I hope that he reiterates what he said on Monday, because it's important that we are united as a nation against extremism in any form.
That Monday statement the president was reading from a teleprompter never strayed from it, and a lot of people's estimations didn't sound like his words, that they had been written for him, as opposed to the off-the-cuff style that he used in that press conference yesterday. Do you agree with the number of people who feel that we might have heard from the real Donald Trump yesterday as opposed to a more managed one on Monday?
I think that presidents of the United States have the right to speak from prepared remarks, and I'm sure what the president said on Monday was what he believed, and I hope that upon reflection he will return to that tenor. And certainly I want to indicate that I believe that the actions in Charlottesville were completely unacceptable. The tragic death of a young woman, that was an act of domestic terrorism in my judgment. And the president did indicate that the Department of Justice would be examining that closely. I hope that occurs, and I hope that occurs quickly.
How do you then reconcile the difference between the Trump we heard on Monday from the prepared remarks versus the Trump that we heard Tuesday when he was speaking off the cuff, where he basically put protesters on the same moral plane as, the neo-Nazis and white supremacists?
I believe that his remarks on Monday will express the sentiment of the nation, and I hope he might return to them. And I was pleased with the comments from various other leaders on Capitol Hill and those in the military today and also in the business community. And certainly I think we should move forward together as a nation to decry extremism in any form.
I'm sorry to harp on this, Congressman, but Monday, as you said, the president has a right to read prepared remarks all he wants, but the clear difference in style, tone, anger, and the sort of equivocating the two sides of it was not present Monday. We did see it Tuesday. And I just wonder, most Americans, I think, could support what the president said on Monday. So many seem to object to what he said on Tuesday. Can you really analyze his remarks by only looking at one and not the other?
I would hope that he might return to what he said on Monday, and those certainly are my sentiments. And I work with the White House and the administration on important issues and will continue to do so. I think the remarks decrying extremism were in the best interests of the American nation and as the way we should move forward.
Will this in any way change your ability to work with this White House and with this president? It certainly did for the CEOs that were in his councils.
I want to continue to work with the White House. There are important issues that have to be addressed in September, including, for example, funding of the government for the new fiscal year that begins October 1st. And also, we have to deal with the debt ceiling issue. And then there are many international issues that confront the United States. I'm thinking in particular regarding North Korea, where I believe that we can resolve that diplomatically, and we certainly should exert pressure upon the Chinese to become involved in a responsible manner in that hot spot in the world. And there's a lot of work to be done, and I want to work with the administration on the pressing issues that confront the American people.
There has been a lot of criticism of congressional Republicans for, in the estimation of many, not doing enough to provide oversight for this White House and to make sure that the White House stays on track. Do you recognize those concerns of voters in your district and beyond? And do you think that you can do more in terms of oversight of this White House?
I certainly think that the Congress is a separate and co-equal branch of government, and we are the first branch of government, and mentioned in Article 1, And the best way that we can address the issues confronting the American people is to pass legislation and to put that legislation on the desk of the president. And there are so many areas where that is needed. I think we need fundamental tax reform in this country, for example. Certainly the health care legislation needs to be reformed. And most pressing in September is making sure that we fund the government beginning October 1st.
Finally, Congressman, do the events of the last several days at all change in your mind, your opinion as to whether Donald Trump is fit to be president of the United States?
The American people elected President Trump. He certainly is a person who has not held political office before, and so he comes to the presidency from the perspective of being in the business community. I hope that he will be placed in a cooperative situation with those of us on Capitol Hill. We want to work with the White House on these pressing issues, and I hope and believe that the White House wants to work with us. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. It's going to be a very busy September, and I want to make sure that we conduct the business of the nation, and that will require cooperation between the Congress and the White House, and I hope we can work in a bipartisan capacity to reach that common goal.
Apologies, Congressman, but my question was, do the events of the last few days change in your mind, your estimation as to whether Donald Trump is fit to be president of the United States?
I believe that he has the ability to be president. I would hope that he would return to the comments that he made on Monday, and I certainly think that we should denounce extremism as existed in Charlottesville, and of course we should denounce the horrific murder of the young woman who lost her life when an extremist rammed his car into a group of residents. That was absolutely intolerable and has no place in America.
Congressman Leonard Lance, Republican out of New Jersey. Congressman, as always, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, our phone lines are open. The number is at the bottom of your screen. Give us a call to weigh in on President Trump and his reaction to Charlottesville. Up next, we're going to look at how some other Republicans are reacting. They are not being shy about blasting their own president.